Adam Meyer, Mill City Lutherie in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I'm going to do another Peghead repair video. I've done one before. That was for a Gibson ES335. If I recall, that was, I think, a college graduation gift. The guitar fell forward onto carpet. The peghead was never struck and it broke. It was a deluxe repair with neck splints and finish touch-up. The customer wanted that. He didn't want to see the crack at all. Would prefer that there was some color touch-up. I'll link to that video. Either you'll see it on the screen or in the About section of this video. But in this one, the theme of this video is to do a solid structural repair, but we're going to be more budget minded. But there will be neck splints, and the repair will be as good as the repair in the other video, but it will cost much less. It'll take much less time to do. So we're starting off with an Epiphone Les Paul. This is definitely a much cheaper guitar. It's not a cheap guitar, but compared to an actual Gibson, this is, a fraction of the price. This customer understands that the amount of time that it takes to do this. He just wants the guitar back together and the repair to not exceed the replacement value of the guitar, or to not be close enough where he's actually contemplating that. So that's the reason why we're going to do this. My criteria on whether or not to use neck splints is whether or not the peghead was completely broke off. And you can try and glue this together with wood glue. I really don't like having repairs come back when they're like this, especially if you get glue on the wood. It's really hard to re-glue something that is contaminated wood. If I was taking the bridge off the top of an acoustic guitar, you can clean the glue off there. It would be really difficult to clean this out. Another criteria for using neck splints is, like I said before, the ES335 video, the peghead was never actually hit. Actually, this guitar just fell over as well. Both guitars fell onto carpet. The peghead was never struck, and yet it broke. That's a red flag that the wood through here just isn't as strong as other guitars, that you need to reinforce this. So that's the logic behind putting the splints in this guitar. Another thing is, this is a wide open break, so I'll be using wood glue. There are times when the peghead doesn't come off, it's just a little bit of a crack and you can't really get in there. That's when I'll use epoxy, because you can use a hair dryer, warm this up, and it'll seep down into the crack without diluting the glue. I will always be against diluting glue on repairs like this. However, if you have a repair like that, my videos are strictly promotional. They're not tutorial. I know some of you are just randomly searching, trying to figure out how to do this for yourself. I do not recommend do-it-yourselfers or amateurs using epoxy. First of all, this is much more expensive than that. Just these little tubes in my gun here cost probably like 3 times as much as that bottle of Titebond. But you also need practice in mixing it. You need to get the ratios correct. This new T88 from System 3 is a 50-50 mix ratio, and you want it to be exactly the same, and you want to mix it really well. If it comes in the big bottles, I believe that's 2 parts resin, 1 part hardener. You need that ratio to be correct, or else it won't set up right. So anybody doing any woodworking with epoxy, practice on scrap wood, practice gluing it together. Make sure you've got a good hold. I will also be showing my template and some dowels. We've got all the parts off that. I believe we discussed the theme of this repair and how I'm going to go about it and the reasoning for that. So let's get a closer look at what we have here. All right, let's take a look at what we have here. So this is off completely. One thing you want to look for is make sure there aren't any secondary breaks. Obviously this is our main break, it just came off, but if there's another crack going this way, or internally if there's something that is cracked apart in there, you'll want to make sure that you get glue down in those cracks. Is very important that you take care of anything like that, either when you go to glue this on or before. You'll have to, got to use your judgment on which way to go about that. So let me get this flipped over. What I'm going to use is I have these templates that I had made up. It'll go on, I'll hold this together, and we're going to do some splints, kind of like that. So the idea is I'll take this off, establish where the center is on the peg head, and I'll have an idea where the template will go, and I'll mark in here, and I'll have to kind of figure out where I can, along the two channels where the splints will go, where I can drill a hole that I will use some bamboo dowel. Let's see here, take one of these out. There will be a hole through here, and I'll put that in on either side, and that will keep this in place when glue is on. So I'll be clamping it down, and when you put the glue on, it's almost like a lubricant. It'll want to slide out of place before the glue starts to set up. And so that's why I'm going to use these, locate them in there, so that when I route for the splints, I route away this. There are people that will use metal pins. You then have to either figure out a way to get that pin out of the instrument before you put in the splints. You have to locate it somewhere else and do finish touch-up over it. This is just kind of a combination thing. I don't have to worry about having extra marks or anything, because this is going to be right where that dowel, or where the splint is. So I'm just going to route it away into dust and then put in a splint where it used to be. Now get a close-up look here. We've got a big chunk of finish that has come loose here. I'm going to take a razor blade. As you can see there, it can just barely get under that lip. I'm going to take some super thin super glue, cyanoacrylate, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. I'm going to use a razor blade. I'm going to see if we can get this to just wick underneath that edge there. See that? I'm going to do this a few times. This help it look better, but also I don't have to worry about this this big chunk of finish coming off when I'm working on this. All right, try and get on this lip here again. I could take some time and fill this whole section in. I could fill in the other parts here that, as you can see, right here where my thumb is, there's finish missing, but that's more time. The idea is we're getting this back together for as low a price as possible, with the repair being as reliable as possible. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to bleed a little bit on that edge there, see if I can get a little bit more. And then we will call it a day on this. There. That's all. Now we're going to take a close-up look at the splints. I've already went ahead and made these. It's, not very interesting on video. I'm seeing the woodworking type stuff. But I'm going to kind of explain here. I end up starting off with something that's, obviously going to stick out, and I'm going to trimming it down. But these need to fit properly. So you want to be able to slide it in, no force trying to get it all the way down in there. And what I'll do is I'll use a pencil and I'll mark on the splint how deep it is. And you just compare by measuring and making sure that you're getting it all the way to the bottom. If you're trying to force these in, there's a chance that you don't get it all the way to the bottom and you end up with a gap inside the neck. That's bad, because then you're going to have to either back up or the neck's going to break again. If it's too loose, then you're just trying to rely on glue to fill in the gap and be strong enough to hold this together, and that's bad as well. Another issue, if these are too tight, I can slide it in and out. Got to grab it in the right way, but if I'm going at it a wrong angle or so, I'm pulling up on this side, it catches here. But pull it out in the center, it comes right out. If I'm putting glue on this, and this is really tight, I'm just going to end up scraping the glue off when I put that in. So fit. It's hard to describe. Fit is neither loose, there's no wiggle here, and it's not tight either. It's fit. So now that I know that these both fit, I have both of them made. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trim it off like a straight line, pretty close to getting it in, so I can clamp it down nice and secure. But I'm also not having to trim all this off later, that I'm getting close to the actual size. So that'll be the next step. All right, saw this before when I didn't have strings on and I didn't have splints in the neck. Let's see if I can get this to flex. You could see it flex before. That's nice and solid. It doesn't flex at all. That's why those splints are in the neck on a guitar like this. Well, and there you have it, another successful repair, and it looks pretty good. The whole point of this video is doing a major repair like this, but on a budget, keeping it the price kind of the time and repair put into this, kind of keep it in context of the instrument that I'm doing. If this were a Gibson Les Paul, Martin acoustic, you're taking time. Sometimes you strip all the way to the wood, doing seal coats and everything. The time adds up and adds up and adds up. That's where I can kind of keep the price down. I lucked out with some of the rattle can paint. It was a pretty close match to this. Also sprayed some clear over it. Only takes a matter of a day or two to get that part of this job done. Whereas if I was doing a lacquer touch up on this, it's going to take a couple weeks at least on top of the rest of the repair. The primary concern was fixing that peg head so this can be playable and the customer doesn't have to throw their guitar out. So if you have any questions on repairs like this or any of my other videos, my contact information is in the credits at the end or the About section of my page, and we'll see you next time.